We're not regulated by the FCC, which is nice. 20 seconds.
Music.
That's it. 20 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse. This show is designed to help people with financial literacy. Well, probably not the financial literacy that you have grown up with or known. It's not your grandpa's financial literacy, as Bill uses his 30-plus years in the financial industry to stretch your financial box from, Bill, about a 30,000-foot view of things for sure. Bill and his guests have helped hundreds of clients achieve and surpass their financial goals. If you have questions, email Bill at hasse.bill@gmail.com or reach out to him at 216thenet@gmail.com and just put innovative strategies in the subject line. Today, sales growth. Whew. There was a lot going on there in one breath with our good friend Scott Rosenzweig. I don't know, Scott. I probably butchered that, and I apologize. But it's as close as I could get. Bill, good morning.
Morning, Ken. Thanks for that wonderful introduction once again at 30,000 square feet. I'm glad we're keeping it up at that level. We kind of bounce around sometimes and do rough wins, but sales growth, important subject, and it's that time of year when people should be looking at what's been going on, what's working, what's not working. What is your sales growth potential versus what you plan? I've talked with people I know in the sales world in different industries and whatnot, and I hear a lot of very interesting things about ideas and thoughts, and I sometimes have to question the sanity of that. But so I wanted to bring on an expert in this area, and it is Scott Rosenzweig. Scott, welcome to the show. Please tell us a little bit about who you are and Sales Growth Advisors.
Sure, Bill. Thanks for the opportunity to be here. I'm Scott Rosenzweig, and I own and run a company by the name of Sales Growth Advisors. And as Bill, as the name implies, what we do is we work with clients, customers that are typically under 50 million in revenue. And that's real important because that group of customers under 50 million doesn't always have the same staff or the same skills that sales organizations that are larger and larger public companies or perhaps private equity backed companies have. So we, with my background, which I can get into, briefly in a little bit, we help what are called SMBs, small and mid-sized businesses, thrive. We take skills that are that I've been fortunate to have learned in the large corporate companies that I've been with over the last 32 years and in private equity as well. And we bring those skills, those tactics, those tools, those elements to smaller businesses, and we allow them to thrive.
Well, I can understand the true value of that, because especially in that market under 50 years. Again, because typically what you have is a business owner or the president or something kind of running the sales department, or maybe you have a single person that's doing the sales, and that's, to me, that's just not a good combination, because you're not focused just on one area like the big boys are.
Right.
You're kind of pulled in different directions, and sometimes you lose that focus and go back to it and say, oh, wait a minute, sales is down. What happened? Sales, we're not as strong as we expected to be. What's going on? What's changed?
Right.
And things do. I mean, let me ask you one thing, so what's more important when you're hiring in the sales world? Is it character? Because to me, I would think you would want to hire character because you can always teach skills.
That's right. It's a great question. So you always want to hire the will because you can always teach the skill. That's exactly right. So if you've got a sales professional that is, driven, has an insatiable desire to succeed, somebody that, again, as I mentioned, has the will to succeed and the want and the desire, the skill part of it can be taught very easily. But, I like to say sometimes, Bill, you can't coach tall, right? So if somebody it doesn't have that and they're just not sales in their DNA and their blood, it's hard to teach that. It really is. And that's why I use that term, you can't coach tall. Let me expand on that, though, a little bit, getting back to your question. You're very right. Oftentimes, a founder, an owner, maybe they have the title of president, whatever the case may be, that under $50 million client or customer, they started the business from scratch, right? So they were doing everything when they started the business, and sales was one of them. And it doesn't necessarily mean they're not great at sales, but that's not what their typical skill set is, because most founders of companies, most owners, founders, presidents, they're either operations people, they're engineering people that have invented a great new product, or sometimes they're financial people, all of which are incredible skills, but they're not sales and marketing people. And
nobody starts a business because they want to sell something. They do want to sell something, their product or their services, but they don't get into it because they want to be in sales.
No, that's exactly right. But they do it by de facto, right? Because they're the owner or the founder, and they have to do that. So what's going on is that we're moving into, and we have been moving into, an arena of what's called fractional professionals. And used to be called, when this all started maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago, you might remember, you've been around a little bit like I have. It used to be called the gig economy. And the gig economy was, people doing effectively fractional work. And now it's moved into what is called the fractional economy, and not the gig economy anymore. And it's senior.
California killed the gig economy, right?
What's that?
California killed the gig economy.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
They call it something else now.
Exactly. So what's happening is that, and this isn't just in sales, because I'm a fractional commercial executive sales leader. This isn't just in sales. This is happening in the finance world with CFOs. This is happening at the CEO level with fractional CEOs, where smaller companies, again, under 50 million, what's called the SMB, the small mid-sized businesses I mentioned, they're getting smart. And where they're getting smart is they're recognizing, hey, we can't do it all. Hey, we don't need to do it all. Let's bring in the experts, guys like me and people that I work with, that I bring in on different projects, that are all fractional. So, for example, I have 32 years experience at the C-suite level as a commercial executive leader. What does that mean? That means that I've led sales strategy and execution, marketing strategy and execution, customer service strategy and execution. With the first half of my original career before I got into consulting, first half of that was with large public companies, and then I pivoted to private equity the second half of my career. So I've been blessed, fortunate that I've been able to learn all of these things and grow very large teams, very large companies, the people in those teams. But I'm able to do it now, giving all of that benefit to smaller clients who are really looking to thrive. And it's fun. It's really exciting. It's fun.
Well, I would, as a small business owner, I would be thrilled to death to have somebody like you come in and help guide me and get me going in the right direction. Because oftentimes, and I'm guilty of this, oftentimes people say, sales is sales. And in some ways it is, sales is sales. It's a matter of learning the language of the industry, of the product you're trying to sell, that's in part, and then also learning what it is your target market is looking for. What do they need?
Right.
And then how do you represent what you're offering to them? Because too many salespeople just say, hey, I've got this great product. You need it. You should buy it. Right. And I can't understand why you're not buying it from me right now.
Well, and again, that gets into value, right? I've always, in all my years of experience and what I currently do today, you've got to sell value to your ultimate end customer. Whoever your customer is, as a salesperson, you have to sell value. You have to solve their problems. It's not your problems, it's their problems.
Yep.
And if your product or service, we do a lot with service companies as well, if your product or service can truly help solve a problem that client or customer has, that's where you're going to win. And so many times, and it's interesting you brought that up, because I know, Bill, you've been around the sales end of things for a while. A lot of times salespeople, they talk and they talk and they talk and they talk, and they're not listening, right? And they're not recognizing that client has a need. And the best salespeople, the superior salespeople, are the ones that listen in proportion to their ears and mouth, and they're able to listen to their customer and really make a difference. And sell their product, by the way. Or
2 ears, one mouth. That's important.
2 ears, one mouth, and you need to use it in proportion. And so many salespeople don't do that because they either get nervous or they're so excited they want to sell everything. They want to, proverbially dump their briefcase on the desk, and
they think they're going to sell every single person they come in front of.
Right, and every single product that they have. Right, larger companies. Right. Start with one product. Start with one client. Solve one need.
In sales, you got to get used to disappointment.
Yes.
Because you're not selling everybody. So you have to have some pretty thick skin.
That's right.
And because the reason why you're not selling everybody is you haven't developed all the skills yet.
That's right.
And using the right words at the right time and looking, like you say, it's about listening. So as I've gotten older and been in sales for a long time, for 20 years, I sold $1 million contracts.
Right.
And so you have to learn how to develop the skills to get to that level and to be able to make those sales. But I'm still learning.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
And it's
and that's an old dog.
I am an old dog, and I'm coachable. That's important too. It doesn't matter how old you are, how long you've been around, and whatever you're doing. If you aren't remaining coachable and trainable, you're obsolete.
Yep. So, of course, you're listening to Innovative Strategies here at 216 The Net. And we've got Scott Rosenzweig.
Rosenzweig, that's okay.
Rosenzweig.
I'll answer to most anything, but that's fine.
Mine's Jones, so it's really easy, right? So, Scott, if people want to, those small to medium-sized businesses want to get in touch with you and know what you do or ask you some questions, how do they do that?
Yeah, so probably the best, and you've got it up on the screen. Go to https://salesgrowthadvisors.com or www, which is more familiar to people, Sales Growth Advisors, and advisors is spelled ADVISORS. There's a couple different ways to spell it, but it's ADVISORS.
Yeah, I copied and pasted.
Okay, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Kent might have a challenge in spelling from time to time, but that's usually my email address.
Good morning, Jim.
Nobody else.
So there's a question that came in, and maybe it's steering the different direction, but both of you are people who help those financial growth, right?
We bring growth to the business, right?
So we're at a point now where small businesses, medium-sized businesses, or even large businesses are trying to project growth for the upcoming year. Right. What tips do you have for those businesses to go, because everybody wants to shoot for the moon, of course, but the last 18 months, Scott, your clients have had to just be scratching their heads going, man, there was a lockdown in 2020. We had a record-breaking year. 2021 comes and we're average again. And it's a weird time right now.
And I got a great follow-up to that, but I want to hear
it is a weird time. There's no question about it. Look, as we all know, some businesses really thrived during the COVID lockdown years, based on the business that they were in, but most didn't, and most had to pivot and do things differently. So what I've always said, the November, December timeframe, as you look ahead to the next year, is when you have the ability to, I want to be very clear, to make changes in your business. And the best business owners do what I'm going to suggest they do. Those that struggle don't. And what you need to do is the concept of winterizing your business, right? So we all know the concept of winterizing a boat or winterizing a cabin or, getting ready for the winter. It doesn't matter what season you're in. You always make changes coming up to the winter, because for most businesses that are on a traditional fiscal year, you have the ability to start fresh, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a wonderful time of year, November, December, to reassess your business. And I've got three 3 recommendations, 3 suggestions that I offer to my clients and anybody listening, that if you really want to grow your business in the new year in 2022, I'm going to suggest you do these 3 things. So the first is you have to assess your sales team. Now, what does that mean? That means that, you've got Bob, Bill, Betty, Sue, Sam, all these people on your sales team. They've been selling, but only the best companies take stock in their salespeople and really assess their salespeople. There's plenty of professional assessment tools that either I deliver or others deliver to companies that allow a salesperson to take an online profile for the simple benefit of knowing how the salespeople are going to mesh. How do you leverage that talent? Very often, a sales assessment of an individual is done on the front end when they're hired. That salesperson might have been hired 5, 6, 7 years ago. But that same methodology really needs to happen every year. Why? Because people change, markets change, businesses change. There's so much change in one year that if you're not on an annual basis assessing your sales team, again, come back to that winterizing concept. It's just a time to take stock in your business. Very often, and I'm included, by the way, in this, every New Year's Day, I do my own personal goals and I do my professional goals every New Year's Day. That's the thing that I do. Well, it's the same concept with business owners. They might, I'd suggest they do it before New Year's Day because, there's a lot to do. But the very first thing as part of this winterizing concept is assess your sales team. So, Bill, let me pause there, see if you have a question before I go.
Because I want to bring up the fact that assessing the sales team, salespeople are very temperamental, right?
Right.
We don't like to be tracked. We don't like the CRMs where the president can follow what we've been doing and it's proprietary information. And, is it mine or is it yours? Because a lot of business owners don't have that. And all of a sudden the top salesperson comes in and says, hey, guess what? I'm buying you out. And you're like, wait a minute, I'm not for sale. And he's, well, it doesn't matter because I'm either going to buy you out, you can keep a job here, or I'm going to move and I'm going to take all the clients with me. That's that's a different story. But, those things happen. But salespeople are a little bit temperamental and nervous. And so when they do these assessments, one of the things a salesperson's going to feel like is, man, is he looking at my stuff and I haven't been up to snuff lately? Am I going to get fired? What's going to happen? Are we going to change commission structures? Because you talk about, assessing the sales in an overall big picture. A lot of people who assess their sales typically just say, okay, here's what we've been doing. How can we add on to this or just tweak that, as opposed to looking at the big picture and saying, maybe all of what you're doing is not conducive to what you need to be doing.
Right. But you're right. Let me give you an example. And by the way, the assessments that I'm referring to are absolutely, completely nothing to be concerned about if you're a salesperson out there listening, because what it's doing is it's helping the organization understand what your unique skills are, what your unique motivations are. And all too often, Bill, and I've been doing this a long, long time, for a lot of years, sometimes very often you'll find somebody's in outside sales and they're not performing, not because they're not good in sales, but maybe they're better as an inside salesperson. Or maybe they're better as a customer service person, right? And they've been thrust into this, maybe they're an introverted individual and they've been thrust into this outside world for whatever reason. And they're struggling because they're just not comfortable. Doesn't mean they're a bad person. Doesn't mean that they don't have skills. They have a lot of skills. So the assessment, and I really want to just take a few minutes to really drive this home. The assessments that I offer, and there's others that offer it as well, are simply designed to help a business owner, founder, owner, president, understand what is motivating that salesperson. Again, I want to reemphasize, people change, markets change, businesses change. So just because you were, loving outside sales as a salesperson and performing 3-4 years ago, that's why you got to do this on an annual basis, because people change, their lives change, they age, things happen. So it's
challenging for business owners because there's a lot of things that need to be looked at annually, right? There's a lot of different angles you need to look at. Operations of in the different departments of a business. Sales is certainly a major part of that. I know historically, salespeople probably have felt that they're not let's say, as admired as much as they should be within their organization, to put it in a nice way. And an experience I had. So when computers took over in the trading pits and we were all kind of pushed out, a number of people I know down there went into sales of pharmaceuticals.
Mm-hmm.
And in the first month, they killed it, because these are type AAA people. They go out and get it done.
That's right.
And then the next month they're killing it. And then the company comes back and says, well, now we're going to double your quota and cut your commissions in half. And it's like, that's the reward I get for doing a good job.
Yeah, that's not wise, obviously, but yeah, that happens from time to time, but not the
Fortune 100 company I'm referring to.
Okay.
So these things happen, and it's like, do business owners understand the true value of the sales person and the sales team?
The answer is yes and no, right? It depends on who the business is. It depends on who the individual is. And those business owners that I work with, that I have found, are very comfortable in their skin. They really know their product. They know their business, and they're smart about, hiring in people like me and other Fractional to get the most out of it. They're the ones that do recognize the value of the sales organization. But let me mention this, and this is interesting. They're truly, if you ask anybody in business, what is the most important function in any business? It's the sales function.
Yeah.
That's not just me saying that.
Well, I'll agree with you.
Well, thank you. And let me tell you why. And please add on to what I'm going to say. If there isn't profitable revenue coming into a business, no other function of the organization matters. Manufacturing doesn't matter because they don't have orders. Transportation doesn't have orders because they can't ship. Collections doesn't matter because there aren't transactions.
There are no accounts receivable. Yeah.
I could go on and on and on, right? You get my point. So I really, truly, truly believe, and always have, and that's why I've stayed in the commercial executive, sales, marketing, and customer service leadership role my whole career, is that everything starts with sales. Sales starts the organization. Once you sell something, then other things can happen.
Everything else kicks into gear.
Right.
And I don't want to dismiss this. Jen, hello. Thank you for joining in and saying hello. Appreciate you having you here. But Scott, so I agree with you, but I'm a sales guy, right? So of course I'm going to agree with you.
Right.
But it's about leadership too. You've got to have good leadership, whether it's the sales manager, head of sales who's training his team. He's not out there selling, or he or she is not necessarily out there selling on a day-to-day basis. They're training their people in how to develop greater skills,
right,
to be more successful.
So the best sales leaders are the one that coach, develop, and train their salespeople. And I'm brought in sometimes to do that as well. But oftentimes I'm training the trainer. Oftentimes I'm training the VP of sales, or now oftentimes I'll come in and be a fractional VP of sales or CRO, chief revenue officer, depending on the size of the organization, whatever title they want or they have. But oftentimes I'm training the person that's managing or leading the sales team, because sometimes they're good people. They just don't have those skills. And, I always like to say, the sales leader, the sales manager, whatever title, the VP of sales, they've got plates that are spinning, multiple plates that are spinning, or multiple balls they're juggling, whatever analogy you want to use. And it really, for the wrong person, it could be overwhelming. For the right person, they thrive. They really do. But what's most important, back to your question directly, Bill, is that you have to support your sales team. You have to give the sales team the tools they need, the training they need, the tactics they need. You got to listen to them, because very often it's no different. It's analogous to listening to your customers. Your customers have the answers. Your customers are giving you the clues of what they need and want. Same thing with salespeople. If a sales leader, manager, VP of sales, whatever the title is, simply listens to their salespeople and helps understand what tools, tactics, things they need, they're going to build just an absolutely fabulous organization. And that's, a lot of what I do is come in to help people grow, because at the end of the day, if a company is growing, I've often said that when you have a revenue increase and you have a margin increase, which oftentimes can go together, it changes the culture of an organization.
Well, those should work together. Marketing.
Well, they could work together. There's no question.
Marketing is to increase sales, right?
That's right.
Yeah. I have a couple of scenarios, but I think Kent wants to kick in, make sure we can get a hold of you and know how to get a hold of you.
Hey, sure. Man, you're getting good at this, Bill.
Well, we want to make sure,
that's right.
The spotlight is my guess.
Yeah, always, right? So, of course, you're tuned in 216net. This is Innovative Strategies with Bill Hasse, where it's financial literacy from about 30,000 foot view, personal, business, doesn't matter. You and your guest have helped hundreds of people be successful. And, of course, as we're showing there on screen right now, we've got Scott, who's the founder CEO of Sales Growth Advisors, to help your small, medium business just thrive in 2022 and get there. And Scott, how do people get in touch with you if they need to?
Sure, and thank you for that. A couple of ways. The best is my email address, which is scott@salesgrowthadvisors.com. Which is a wonderful way to get a hold of me, or there's opportunity on my website, which is up on the screen right now, and that's www.salesgrowthadvisors.com. Remember the S, salesgrowthadvisors.com.
More than one.
Yep, exactly. ADVISORS, as we've talked about. And so reach out, and very often, when I get an inquiry from a prospective client, or I'll get an inquiry from what's called a referral partner. Very often I'll be called in to an account, sometimes not by the client itself. I'll be called in by a CFO, a fractional CFO that's working in that business, or I'll get called in by a fractional CMO, a chief marketing officer that's working in that business.
So,
or the CEO. I'll get called in by referral partners that say, "Hey, Scott, I've got a client and they're struggling in sales." And for example, let's say the scenario is a fractional CFO. That CFO is looking at the numbers of that business every month, and they see flat sales or declining sales, or maybe they see sales up just a little bit, but not nearly to the potential of that client. And that's when they call me in and they say, "Hey, I'd like to make an introduction to a client that I have, that I'm working with. Yeah. Could you talk to them, and could you see if you can help them?" And so what I do is, I get typically the owner, the founder, the president on a phone, or on a Zoom call typically these days, or face-to-face as well. And I just ask a number of different questions about the business, where, and what I'm doing is I'm sensing the level of challenge or pain they have in their organization.
Right.
And Bill, if I were to give you one visual for me or for your listeners, because this is not, we're on the radio here, I'm often referred to as a Swiss Army knife, right? Okay. So I'm the guy that comes in with a lot of tools and a lot of experience and helps fix the sales function. And my goal is there's one goal, and my goal is to turn that sales function around and help that company thrive, help that company grow. So that is my one job. That's my one ambition. That's what I get up every morning early to do, is help companies grow.
And so this is something I emphasize on this show every single week. You need to speak to professionals. You need to speak to the people who are experts in the areas in which you need support and help, because again, we are not born and raised to be people who start a business from scratch and bring it up to $1 billion a year kind of organization.
That's right.
We don't have all those skills, and so we need support and help. And everybody needs support and help from professionals and advisors. But I have a couple of questions for you. Number one, is it not typical that the best salesperson on your sales team winds up being the sales manager? Because in which case, when you do that, you take your best salesperson out of the game.
Good question. I'm so glad you brought that up. That is the last thing you want to do in an organization. The very last thing you want to do is take your best salesperson and elevate them to be a sales manager. It's kind of like, let me use the analogy of football. How many great football players do we know that became coaches, and they're not great coaches? They were great players. Yeah. Just because you know the game doesn't mean you know how to lead the strategy, lead the team, lead the troops. So the very last thing for your listeners, the business owners out there, to do is promote that great salesperson to be a sales leader. Don't do that. Keep that salesperson happy. Let them produce. and I'll bring in the right sales leader. I can help with that, or other people can help with that. But bring in the right sales leader. Do not destroy.
That's a different set of skills.
It's a different set of skills.
Manager,
Totally.
different set of skills.
Well,
But
that's why Tom Brady's not a coach.
Well, there you go.
yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
he's still playing.
Nah, he's not going to be.
He's calling all his own game, but so he might as well be, and he dictates what the coaches can do.
Sometimes those players are great commentators. That's
Correct.
okay.
Yeah.
Later, they're great commentators, but not as great coaches. So really, I want to reemphasize: don't put your best salesperson into a management role. You'll crush the salesperson, and by the way, you'll crush their themselves. Because that's what they want to do is sell, but you'll also crush your revenue. You don't want to do
it's not uncommon for businesses in the range that you work with let me put it straight up, not have a clue what they're doing. And my industry is a poster child for not having a clue how to train people in the financial advising world.
Just financial world.
The financial world, everybody's trying to find that cookie cutter way of making everybody successful and great salespeople in the financial world. And here's a prime example. And welcome, Frank. Thanks for coming in. So I was working with some folks, and we would have meetings every week. And every week they would come in and say, hey, let's try this, or let's try that, or let's do this, let's do that, let's say this, let's say that. And then next week it'd be like, oh, we don't do that anymore. We don't say that anymore. And then after a while, you're like a deer staring in headlights going, I don't even know how I'm supposed to be doing or what I'm doing. And, one response I got was, well, we're just trying to throw everything up against the wall and hope something sticks.
Yeah.
Wow. That shed a lot of light on my. I wasn't staring in the headlights anymore. I was
management by Culver's flavor of the month.
So Bill, if I may, that gets back to, remember I mentioned at the beginning of the show, there's three things I wanted to talk about as it related to winterizing your business, right? Getting it ready for the new year. The first was assessing your sales team. I'm going to skip to number 3 and I'll come back to number 2 because it's pertinent to your question. Is you need to update your sales playbook or your sales plan annually as well. Now, so many companies don't have a sales playbook and a sales plan, and that's a scary thing. You need a plan. I often call, those terms are interchangeable. A sales playbook, think of a football playbook, is how you're going to play the game. It's also known as a sales plan, sometimes a sales process. But you've got to have that. It's like a pilot getting into the cockpit and not having an idea as to where they're flying to. You're just sort of flying blind. You don't want to do that. So this is the time of year, and sometimes this does bleed into January, this one, which is, as you're winterizing, you're getting ready for the next year, you want to update, or if you don't have one, you want to create a sales playbook or a sales plan. Now, what is that? What it is it's about 10 or 12 different components that marketing is involved, customer service is involved. They're all the things that a sales organization needs to do in order to be successful and meet the needs of their customers. And
I agree with that, but you want to be careful, though. You don't want to fall in love with your plan because then you think it's the perfect plan.
That's why you update it. That's why you update it every year. My whole deal is you got to have a plan. And if you don't have a plan, put one together. But yes, you're absolutely right, Bill.
You can't keep open-minded because you can't expect that your plan is going to be that every person in your sales team is going to understand the plan and work it exactly like you think it's supposed to go.
But
that's true. That's true.
Again, we want to go back to the name of the show, Innovative Strategies.
That's right.
My expertise level, or my ladder only goes so high, right? And if I try to adjust my ladder, all I'm doing is moving it down the wall. I still only go so high, right? Everybody's got their own capabilities.
Yeah.
That's why you reach out to people like Scott, reach out to people like you, Bill, because now again, you've got some different strategies in your ladder. I may have a 3-foot step ladder. Y'all have a extension ladder.
Extension, yeah. Right.
So the idea is, I think as you're doing that, you got to really reach out to somebody like Scott. Reach out to somebody like you who can help you update that. plan,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. Because here's another problem that you run into in sales is especially when you're talking about smaller businesses, and even medium-sized businesses. The owner, that's his baby,
Yeah.
and the owner wants to get involved in a sale because it might be the biggest sale. This happened to me.
You're right.
Right. So I was working with a professional employer organization, and I was about to bring in a 300-person company into the fold. And that was by far the biggest that this company had ever seen. I think the biggest they had ever gotten was 30. So I'm about to bring this in and I'm about to go and close the deal. The business owner shows up and goes, I'm going with you. I want to see you in action. I want to see how you're doing this. And I said, no, 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 no. You cannot come on this call. You will absolutely kill the deal.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, I'm the owner.
I gotta be
I
there.
pay you.
Yeah.
I'm coming along.
I
And long story short, he did come along, and yes, he did kill the deal because it was his baby and everything's perfect. He did not know the scenario we were walking into. And that's very important because especially when you're going into a closing call,
Great
you
point.
need to understand who are the people that are concerned, what are their concerns, and how you're going to alleviate that so that you can actually get the person to understand the value and the benefit of what you're bringing to the table.
It's a great point. You're spot on. You're absolutely spot on. Exactly right. And just to expand on what you said a little bit, the best owners, the best founders, the best presidents let their sales organization do what's needed, and then only come into an organization if or come into a client call if specifically asked, because sometimes the salesperson needs the position power of somebody higher than them to bring in, but never should an owner force their way into a sale or force their way into a client. It should only be on invitation of the salesperson or the sales leader that says, hey, we're at the 90, we're on the 1 yard line. We just can't get this over.
Yeah, right.
Can you with your position and title power, just help us run up the middle and just be our muscle?
How frustrating is that to get to the 1 yard line?
Oh yeah, geez,
you
we've all
lose
been
it.
there.
But
We've all been there.
but here's a question for both of you as well, and Scott, especially you, as we're talking about sales growth.
Yeah.
So you sit with me and we take a look at my business, and we've assessed my sales team. We've updated this playbook, and here it is, March, and everything that you taught, that we went over in that playbook worked fantastically, and I stopped using it because it worked so well. And I reverted
you get
back
comfortable.
to
Yes.
Yeah, you think it's on automatic.
yeah. So
No.
how do you maintain? How do you work with people, both of you, that go, yeah, no, I tried it. It worked real well, and now I'm going back to the old ways.
Yeah. So, Bill, if I may, let me jump in. So,
Sure.
it's a great question. So, as I mentioned, first and foremost, you have to update your plan every year because markets change, salespeople change, sales teams change, the dynamics change. But sales success is all about relentless execution. I'm going to say it again. It's all about relentless execution on your playbook or your plan. You cannot say, hey, this is cool, it worked great, I'm going to put it in the drawer. You've got to constantly utilize it, update it, add to it, refresh it, make it a living, breathing document, truly. And very often, by the way, a sales playbook is a document. I mean, it is a document and should be a document. Why? Because when new people come into the organization, what's the first thing you want to hand them? New salespeople. Right. You want to hand them the playbook.
You want consistency.
Exactly.
Let me touch on a different aspect of this stuff too, because you need to be careful. In my world, so when I came out of the trading pits, everybody was like, "Hey, try my strategy. Try the way I trade. Electronically. Try this and learn this and learn that and do it this way." And these systems, they worked, but here's the one thing that caused every one of them to fail: human intervention. It works great, but I think I can tweak this just a little bit, and it's going to be even better. And it's human nature
it is
to want to do that, right? So I get what you're saying about that sales process, that book, that document, and having consistency with the team that comes in and new onboarding members and whatnot. But how do you get someone to not take that human nature and say, well, I can tweak this a little bit, make it better?
It's another good question. It's really humility, right? And it's humility on the part of the organization, for example, that I would work with. And I've never met a stranger in my life. And I've always said, to owners, founders, presidents, sales leaders, whatever the case may be. Let's open this up and look at this together. There's nothing to hide. If something's not working, let's fix it. If you're a tinkerer, tinker it. That's fine, but with somebody that knows what they're doing, and get the right professionals or the right people involved. I had a mentor years ago that said, Scott, the sunshine is the best disinfectant. So think about that for a minute. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, and I've used that my whole career. And what that means is that, sometimes salespeople like to run and hide and shuck and jive and not be accountable. And it's the sales leader or the sales manager or the owner's responsibility. You gotta expose all that. You gotta bring it out into the open. Therefore, the sunshine, which is the best disinfectant that's going to clean everything up. If you get everything up and running and you get it out in the open, you can fix anything in the organization. And one of the things that I've always, whether it's companies that I've led or companies that I'm working with now, is I've always believed in both transparency and accountability. Now, let me explore that just real quick.
Yeah.
You as a business owner, you can't expect your salespeople to be accountable, my opinion, if you're not transparent in the organization. So that's where it gets back to the humility. If the owner, founder, if humility is present and they're transparent with their salespeople, their marketing people, their customer service people, their organization, the best organizations are those that are transparent. And
I love the fact that you say you can't hold them accountable, because no salesperson likes to be held accountable, right? They like to be able to, to do their thing and do it their way. And because there is no cookie cutter type of salesperson out there, everybody has to use their personality, their character.
Yeah.
And I completely agree with you on the humility and humbleness. And Scott, you're the epitome of that. And every discussion I've had with you, you've been like talking to my best friend. We stumbled over each other on our last conversation, patting each other on the back. And I said, we can't do this on the radio show, right? We can't have this brotherly love going on. But that's the reality is you're absolutely correct. But that's leadership. We get back to leadership.
That is leadership. You're absolutely right.
And we know there are many poor leaders in the world, whether any aspect of the world. There are just so many poor leaders out there. We run into them all the time. It's kind of what turned me off in sales when I was younger, because my father was in sales, and he ran sales teams for big companies, and Monsanto was one of them. And he would bring the guys home, and they'd be like, "Oh man, you are going to be an incredible salesperson. You've got the great character, personality, whatever." And I just said, "Good Lord, I don't want to be like him." This guy comes across as just yuck. Don't want to be like that person. So it kind of turned me off.
Yeah.
But the reality is all the bottom line, everybody, and I mean everybody, is a salesperson.
Absolutely. Sales is a profession. It is truly a profession. It's like a doctor, a lawyer. I mean, I certify salespeople with a CSL, certified sales leader. Especially the leaders, I certify sales and salespeople all the time. It is a profession. It absolutely is a profession, to your point.
Yeah, it is. And at its highest levels, it is a absolute art, work of art to be a great salesperson. But keep in mind, we're all salespeople. We're selling ourselves every day in everything we do, how we act, where we go, who we surround ourselves with. We're always in sales. And there's so many people out there that say, no, I hate sales. I'd never go in sales. I'm not in sales. Well, no, you are.
Yeah. We are all selling ourselves in one way, shape, or form.
Right.
You're right. There's just some that choose to do that for their full-time profession.
Unless you hold up in a closet, and you're never going to meet anybody, then you're fine.
If you have a significant other, you're a good salesperson.
If you're married, you're a good salesperson.
Right. Right. That, or if you've ever moved and you've helped your spouse learn that you're going to make a move to another city, that's sales. That's sales right there, right?
Yeah, that's something
I'm in the middle
experienced.
of that right
now.
now.
Oh yeah, I've had that experience.
Kent's going through that himself at the moment.
Okay, there we go.
But he's not moving out of state or even out of town, but still
Moving across town.
But it doesn't matter if you're moving next door. You've got to make that sales pitch.
Absolutely. Hey, Bill, can I jump in on one thing? I know we're
absolutely.
we got a little bit of time. So So I had mentioned just for the audience that there were three things I was going to touch on this whole winterizing concept. The first I talked about, which was assess your sales team. The second I talked about, which was update your sales playbook and plan. And the third, just to make sure that we give everybody what we said we would, was to assess the overall sales function. Now, this is different than assessing the salespeople. The salespeople are the components in the sales function. When I say a sales function, this is outside sales, inside sales, all the support mechanisms. Do you have, going into the next year, everything in the sales organization that you need for your sales team to be successful? For example, let's say you have a great outside sales team and you've never had inside sales. Well, inside sales are people that are communicating with customers non-face-to-face. Now, COVID aside, I understand that COVID changed everybody's world, but there are still great opportunities for creating an inside sales team, which is far more cost-effective for certain types of businesses as well, where they have outside sales for their best salespeople that need to be face-to-face or client-facing with large customers, but inside sales can do a lot of prospecting. Inside sales can touch a lot of customers on a daily basis, far more so than an outside salesperson can. So why do I bring this up? I bring this up because any business owner going into the next year needs to look at, hey, do I have all the different components of my sales organization or my sales function? And the inputs and the outputs. The outputs would be reaching out to clients and customers. The inputs would be the support groups to sales. It's customer service, it's marketing, it's all the different support elements. It's manufacturing, it's transportation, it's everything that touches the sales organization.
Yeah, I would venture to think that many business owners don't understand that. Don't understand that how much it touches every other aspect of your business.
Right.
Or at least to the level that it does. They'll be given credit. But so I got a question for you, just to
sure
bring it back down a little bit. What are some typical sales problems that clients are facing, that your clients are facing, or that you see out there in the small to medium-sized business world?
Yeah, good question. So, the obvious one, the big elephant is, COVID or post-COVID now, or, is it re-COVID? I mean, what are we calling it, right? Hopefully we can just be done with all this. But what it has done is it's changed how organizations communicate with their customers.
Yeah.
And, one of the great things about COVID, for example, in the sense as it relates to businesses, salespeople would try to get to somebody, a decision maker in the organization. This is pre-COVID, right? And they'd show up, or they'd call, or they'd try to make an appointment. And very often there was a gatekeeper that kept the salesperson from getting to that decision maker, right?
Oh, always a pleasure learning how to get past the gatekeeper.
Absolutely. It's a skill in and of itself, right? Yeah. But what happened, Bill, is that when COVID happened, what was happening is that these senior executives, these decision makers, were forwarding their office phone to their cell phone, and they were picking up, and they still are picking up. So very often, so there's one example where it actually helped the whole COVID situation, actually helped salespeople get to the decision maker because it wasn't going through a gatekeeper anymore, because they did just forwarded their phone. So that's one thing. So what a lot of, let me just stay on that theme. A lot of organizations are struggling today to figure out, okay, how do we sell in what looks to be this new normal, right? This new, now there's some face-to-face, and I've been face-to-face with clients as well, but I do a lot of work on Zoom because that's what the client requires, or it's this hybrid model. And I think that's the biggest challenge for companies right now, is to figure out, okay, we went from one end of the spectrum, which was face-to-face and phone selling as well if they had an inside sales team. And then the pendulum swung all the way to the other way, where we weren't seeing anybody. We weren't getting on airplanes. We weren't visiting factories. We weren't seeing clients face-to-face. And now I view it as the pendulum kind of coming back halfway, where it's a hybrid model. Let me give you an example. I was at a trade show. I was at a trade show in Vegas 3 weeks ago, faced on the floor. I haven't been to Vegas in 2.5 years since pre-COVID. And it was interesting. The show was great. And it was well attended, but there was also a virtual version to it, right? Well, that virtual version to a trade show never used to exist before. So I view it as an opportunity for sales organizations and businesses that instead of it being one way or the other, now they have the benefit of both. And if they're smart, they meet the needs of both. So you can utilize your marketing organization very effectively for the virtual part of your selling process and partner with the marketing organization. And then on the sales side, you have multiple choices. You can do face-to-face if the client allows it. You could do inside sales and then leverage the virtual part of it as well.
Yeah, this is a classic definition of Who Moved My Cheese. And
Great book.
It's a great book, and I knew you would get that. I'm not so sure Kent would, because he's quite a bit younger.
Who Moved My Cheese?
Yeah,
I'm lactose intolerant, actually.
Who moved my? It
is a good book.
It's a great book that you should all read, because there is it's so poignant right now.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you though, so there's this very, very fine young man that I know. He happens to be dating my daughter, and he's in business for himself. And he one of the things he does, and he does many things, is raise capital for IT firms, startups like that. And I said, okay, how does this COVID stuff affecting you and what you do in your business? How do you reach out people? How do you reach investors and things like that? And he goes, COVID what? He doesn't even recognize it.
Yeah, love that.
He just is full bore ahead. And I'm telling you, this guy has at any given moment 5 or 10 different business models going on, and he can shift on a dime. It's unbelievable, his focus and his ability.
Smart young man, and it reminds me of another great book, as long as we're bringing up books. How to Be a Rainmaker is another great book, one of my all-time favorites. And I know you've read it as well, Bill. But in that book, there's a chapter called Earthquakes Don't Matter. And what it goes on to say is that everybody has an earthquake. I mean, that's a dramatic example. And the scenario, if you're going to read the book, read that chapter, Earthquakes Don't Matter. And it talks about a sales team in California that was whining because there was an earthquake and they couldn't sell. And every other part of the country of this company said, well, geez, we have hurricanes in our part of the world. We have floods in our part of the country. We have snowstorms, and on and on and on, using natural disasters as the example. But there are no excuses in sales. Find a way. If you can't go over it, go under it. If you can't go under it, go around it. If you can't go around it, go through it. Find a way. And COVID for many people in sales is just a blip on the radar. And that's what I've always coached as well. Be respectful. Be respectful to your clients. Be respectful of, whatever, states or municipalities are asking. But don't let it be an excuse. Don't let it be an impetus to you not making your number. You need to make your number. You need to grow your business, and you're hired to do that.
And a very important characteristic of any salesperson is to have that mindset where it says there's always a solution. Just got to find it. But there's always a solution to every problem.
That's right.
And that's how sales, that's how I've helped grow myself. I have told myself that for years and years and years. I saw somebody post the other day. They said, get up every day like it's your first day.
That's right.
On the new job, and act like that, and be trainable, be coachable, be wanting to learn, be willing to learn, be open-minded, and remember that there's always a solution. Always,
absolutely. And Bill, if I may, another great book, real quick, is because we're Chicago, is Ray Kroc, the only who's the founder of McDonald's. The only book that he actually wrote, which is an autobiography, which your listeners will love. It's a short read. It's called Grinding It Out. And what he says in there is, if you stay green, you keep growing. If you ripen, you rot. Think about that for a minute. If you stay green, you keep growing. If you ripen, you rot.
Yeah, great.
And it's exactly what you're saying, right? It's keep growing, keep learning, keep pressing forward, keep being creative, keep finding ways to do it. First of all, it's fun. Second of all, because you don't get stale. Second of all, you're going to learn things that you never thought you might learn if you're creative and always say yes to people and opportunities. Those are the best things for salespeople and business leaders, by the way.
One of the things I find hardest, though, for people coming out of college when I get into sales, and especially if they want to get into my world, is it takes time to build up before you actually make any kind of decent income to live off of. And here's part of the problem is we spend the first portion of our lives going to school, learning lessons in order to take a test.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And then we go out into the real world, and guess what happens? Life tests us, and then we learn the lessons. So we've got things backwards, and I'm trying to figure out a way to help change the educational system so that we can be more, lifelike and realistic, and partially because I want people to understand financial literacy too. But so this is a challenge.
Yeah.
I think in the sales world, when people come out, they don't have sales training in college.
No, they don't. I wish they did, but they don't. So what's the solution there? My recommendation, because I'm asked all the time by young people, what's the key to success? What, with your years of experience, Scott, what would you recommend? And I always say, get a mentor. Find a mentor. Saddle yourself. And I mentor a lot of young professionals all the time, formally and informally. And I think that's absolutely the way to do it. If you're a younger salesperson out there and you're climbing your career, or younger anything in your career, it doesn't even have to be sales, find a mentor or find a couple of mentors, because these are people that have done it. They've found ways to do it. Case of me, I'm 32 years. Bill, you're 32 years as well. Leadership in business. And there's a lot of things and a lot of things I know that I'm happy to offer to young professionals that are interested in learning more. And that is the secret to success. It really is.
I absolutely agree. I think it's important to invest and give back because I wouldn't be where I am without support of, I can't even count the number of people, right?
Me too.
We don't even know everybody that was involved in our successes and stuff. But good morning, Alex. Thanks for checking in as well. We're down to about 4 minutes. So I want to give you a little bit of opportunity. Was there something we haven't really brought up that you really wanted to emphasize and get a point across about?
No, I don't know that it's something we didn't bring up. I just want to reemphasize that this is the time to retool your business. This is the time. Some businesses are crazy busy at the end of the year. They're in holiday gifts or things of that nature. But a lot of times businesses slow down a little bit at this time of the year. Usually Thanksgiving
starting on Monday, it's like I'm not going to get anything else done this year.
Right. So for the smart business owners, the smart sales leaders, the smart executives in business, look at your business, look at it really honestly, very introspectively, and say, hey, are we doing everything that we possibly can? Look, if you have a sales challenge, start there, but be perfectly honest and open about where you're thriving and where you're not. And if you need to bring in professionals, bring in professionals.
I think it's just, you could probably come up with reasons every year why this is so important right now. But the reality is we hopefully are going to be coming out of this COVID scenario, but we are in economic challenges we have not seen in a long time.
Sure.
And that needs to be taken into account as you go forward. I've talked to recently with town finance managers, and they're just like, well, our projections for bringing in money for taxes and everything else, they said, you might want to pare those numbers down. You might want to be a little more conservative.
Sure.
Because of the challenges I think are coming, obviously between the supply chain and inflation.
Supply chain's a big issue for sure.
Supply chain's a big issue.
Yeah.
I can talk about businesses. I know I've got a friend of mine who's an engineer, builds ice machines, and he's like, they're back ordered 9 months because they can't get parts.
Yeah.
But it's not only that; it's also the cost of things are going up.
Yeah.
And so we're seeing corporations with greater returns on smaller sales.
Right.
So the prices are going up. That's what that tells you.
Yeah.
So I think salespeople need to take into consideration the economies of the world.
But businesses always, businesses, I don't care what business you're in, there's always a challenge. There's always a struggle. Yeah. And it's the best businesses that look at those struggles and challenges candidly, and they make changes in their organization. They don't say, wow, it's because of this or because of this. They say, okay, those are that's the cards we've been dealt, and here's the hand we're going to play. And those are the best organizations.
Well, and would you call that like a floating plan that where you're able to make those adjustments and
Absolutely.
make
You
changes?
constantly, again, using my airplane example, an airplane is constantly, veering off course, and the pilots are constantly bringing it back on course because winds and other things are throwing that airplane off. So if you use that analogy of the airplane, they get to their destination, but they're making adjustments all the way along the way. It's not always smooth sailing. And that's business. That's just business.
All right, Scott, I want to thank you so much for coming on and
Bill, thank you.
providing us with the insight of your knowledge, your wealth of knowledge and experience and everything. And I hope our folks and listeners got something out of this. And I know I did. I'm fortunate to have some amazing guests that I get to
Appreciate
get
that.
to know. But I do want to thank you for being on here, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.
Sounds great. Bill, thanks again. Appreciate the opportunity. Have a great rest of the week.
You have a great Thanksgiving.
All right, you too. Great. Thanks.
Folks, that's going to do it for Innovative Strategies here, 21/6 the net. For all your sales growth opportunities, coaching, training, reach out to Scott again at salesgrowthadvisors.com.
Thank you.
Stick around at 12:30. Questions you never thought you could ask in church. That's going to be a great Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in, folks.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.